Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Dream. Welcome to the It's All Good show. And today we have the second in a series that I call Psychedelics as Medicine. And my interviewee today, I actually met on an airplane in 2009. I think we were flying from Washington, D.C. to Phoenix. And we talked for the entire flight. I don't normally talk to people. I'll say like hello to the person sitting next to me, and then I'll dive into my book or whatever it is. But Dave and I just absolutely hit it off. And then our paths, we've stayed connected. And we have, just as we've woven our way through our lives, we've met up at different events, and it's been really amazing. And the other day, after I decided to start this series, and Dave and I had not been in contact for months or more, possibly a year, I said to Stephanie, to my wife, I said, I want to get a hold of Dave from Oregon because he was in the front line of psilocybin therapy and all involved in all the licensing and all this. And I want him to be my interview for the psilocybin podcast. And it was less than a week. I got a text message from you. And it wasn't about any of this. It was just something else. And I was like, oh yeah, whatever about all that. But here's the really cool thing. You've been on my list to reach out to, and it was just like from the time we met, the whole thing's just been one cool, magical synchronicity after another, including the fact that several years back, I had one of the most powerful psychedelic experiences of my life. And that's a pretty big statement for me. With you right next to me and a whole group of amazing other beings in Mexico, and that experience to never be forgotten. But so just go off on a tangent here. My guest today is Dave Naftalin. Dave, welcome to the It's All Good show.
It's an honor and a pleasure to be here, and it's so good to see you, my friend.
You look really dapper. Like I feel like I should have put on a maybe more colorful shirt.
You look great,
or
man. You
or
look
my,
great.
I have a psychedelic velvet jacket I could be wearing, but
Yeah,
no, you look.
man, it's been kind of a recent thing for me. I'm usually in hats and hoodies, but I've decided to either be hats and hoodies or hats and velvet blazers. So it's working out all right.
You look fabulous. Now, before we dive into the whole thing around psilocybin and everything else, give us a little bit of your background, more
Yeah,
than just meeting Dr. Dream on a plane in 2009. Like, what got you to where you are that
totally.
we're here?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a long story. I'll do the nutshell of this, though. When I graduated high school, five of my best friends all passed away over 18 months from five different random incidents. And at the time, and for a long time, I really could not grasp what had happened. And I couldn't find the good that everyone was trying to say that existed, right? From it all. And that's when I first got introduced into psilocybin. And immediately I was able to start. Now, the process of grieving and working through and getting through that was much longer than one psychedelic experience. But that first ever psilocybin experience for me brought a sense of peace that never left me. It was instilled inside my DNA, right? And it was the first step for me, which included, of course, traditional therapies and all sorts of other things, right? But this psychedelic, this tool in the toolbox, this piece of the mosaic was an enormous piece of that for me. And you also got to realize, this is what, 30 years, 25, 30 years ago now, right? So it was very taboo. Like it was counterculture, it wasn't society wasn't viewing this as a legitimate therapy, right? Even though it'd been happening for thousands and thousands of years, right? So that's how it kind of started with me. And then obviously over the years with other experiences, both therapeutic and recreational, just got to start really feeling a lot of the benefits. And so and I come from a background too, where I was a medic, wildfire fighter, enforcement ranger, like all of these things, right? So saw a lot of stuff, did a lot of stuff, capital T's, little t's, whatever you want to call them, right? Experiences. And I had a lot of stuff to work through, like we all do, right? Not more or less than anybody else, but just my unique path of experiences and traumas. And they were always there and available to help at times. And these would be, these big macro sessions. So when Measure 109 passed here in Oregon, I knew that that was my next play. I had a successful alpaca and CBG hemp farm out here for a long time, and was fortunate enough to be able to provide some of the leading research facilities with CBG, and made some great connections doing that. But when 109 passed, I knew both professionally and personally this was a big match for me. So jumped right into the industry right away. I was one of so they announced the three first facilitators in the nation. They announced us all on the same day, and I was one of those three, which was really cool. Just to say that you were the first legally licensed ones, right? So that was cool. So been in it as on a facilitator level. I also acted as the director of services for two of the first actual psilocybin service centers here in Oregon, building them up operationally, getting them started, and figuring out a really interesting, highly regulated, legal, safe, supportive market, right? And there's a lot that goes into that, and the service centers are so integral, right? Like, and I can tell you that from the 2 years in there, the immense amount of healing after a single session has been incredible. And when I say a single session, I want to be really clear that it's not just, there's no dispensary style. It's not not doctor's note. Like in Oregon here, Colorado is very similar. If you're 21 or over and you pass the psych screens, you go through a lot of work to make sure it's safe for you, safe for us, right? But it's about a 15 to 20-hour experience, with two 90-minute preparation sessions on the front end of this to go over everything, right? Why are you here? Medications, histories, everything, right? Intention setting, goal setting, talking about control and the release of control and how that is a huge part of this process, right? And trusting the process too. Trusting the facilitator, trusting the medicine, trusting the service center, and going through like all of that on the front end of it, and then you actually have the legal term for it in Oregon is the administration session, but that's when you go eat mushrooms in a service center, has to be inside there. And you have that experience. And then, as we all know, that's the beginning, right? You can be shown a lot of paths, and then it's really up to you to decide if you're going to continue down those paths or not. And they can be beautiful, terrifying, and everything in between. I think, what it comes down to is we have this opportunity to dive into the abyss and to find the treasure. The treasure is always you, right? And then it's dealing with the emotional garbage between here and here that we all have. And that is part of the human experience. And to be able to clear that and and it's a continuous practice to clear that space and rejoin, reconnect, be re-inspired by that heart-mind connection and communication. I mean, it's what it's all about. And then just folks coming in the first year, saw over 200 people go through the service centers. And there wasn't one person that went through and said that was a mistake. you know, um, Remarkable, results after single sessions. I'm talking about we work a lot with veterans, right? And we're at a point in this country where there's 22, I believe, suicides a day for veterans in this country alone. And so many would go through and say, hey, I'm not going to be one of 22. You know what I mean? And to see that and then be able to talk to them and their support and their family members, weeks and months down the road, and just be able to hear these stories of how people are changing intrinsically within themselves, right? And healing themselves because we are our greatest healers. There's no doubt about that. So that's been great. And then after that administration session, and this is the most important part, in my opinion, and this is all my opinion, by the way, right? But in the industry, it's the integration session, and that's anywhere 2 to 4 hours typically in the service centers. Is
Now,
that enough time?
is it the same day? It's like right after,
No, no,
or
sorry. Yeah. So the preparation sessions, you'll do those, probably two of those in like over a week. And then the actual administration session, and then really 2 to 7 days. It depends on the person to start these integration sessions, right? You don't want to do them too early because sometimes you just have no idea what you just processed. A lot of information to download. But then just depending on you, then starting those integration sessions really, I mean, maybe you have these aha moments, or maybe there's a lot of information that's hard to decipher. So to have these highly trained facilitators there to help, that we're able to take notes in your session for you and just be there from start to finish is really the golden nugget of this experience. It's not just walking in and eating mushrooms. And I tell people this all the time. If you think that you're just going to eat some mushrooms and that's all you're going to do and your life's going to radically change, like you're probably setting yourself up with some unrealistic expectations, right? Like it's all about doing the work and continuing to do the work. And we're very lucky to be in a couple states now where psychedelics are being viewed as, medicinal and therapeutic. And the federal pendulum is swinging so fast on this, and it always has. Psilocybin quickly detached itself from cannabis, which was smart. Cannabis, unfortunately, however you skin it, will always be attached to the war on drugs. And psilocybin quickly attached itself to mental health and to veterans. And that seems to be something, especially in a time in our country where it seems to be so much division. This is one of the few things where people aren't really divided. Most people are curious, if not supportive, right? And it doesn't matter, progressive, Republican. I mean, Texas is one of the biggest supporting states of psychedelics. And I think that surprises a lot of people with it being a conservative state, but this transcends politics. Psychedelics and politics, they don't really go together, right? I mean, the expansion, the consciousness of psychedelics goes way beyond our human defined lines of government and beliefs and all this kind of stuff. So that's a little snippet, I guess, of where I've come from.
I love it. I'm interested in what the administration session, what's that like? What's the set and setting? How does all that work? And is there just one facilitator and has the client met that facilitator prior to this? Were they involved in those two 90-minute things? So give us
Yeah,
kind of the whole rundown of
great.
what it's like.
Yeah, great question. So yeah, those preparation sessions are one-on-one with the person and their facilitator, right? The facilitator is always up to them who they choose. It's typically one-on-one facilitator to client. Sometimes people, though, they know that they want a facilitator, or they want two. They want the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and that can be very beneficial, right? So there can be multiples in there. There can be individual sessions, small group sessions, large group sessions. So depending on that, it depends on how many facilitators are going to be around, depending on state regulations, right? So basically, depending on the dose of the medicine you take, is kind of what dictates how many facilitators have to be there per person.
Who decides the dose?
What's that?
Who decides the dose?
Yeah, so that's decided between the facilitator and the client. and that's agreed on in those preparation sessions, those two 90-minute preparation sessions. Dosage is a big thing that's talked about. You know, it's been really interesting too, the medicine, the mushrooms that the service centers in Oregon get, they come from state certified manufacturers, and the product has been phenomenal. I mean, incredibly strong. Everything's tested along the way. You have the exact potency, and it's been fascinating too because, and they do it all in milligrams of psilocybin analyte and psilocin, right? The two psychoactive compounds. It's not grams, right? Which was a really hard transition. But the average dose is probably 20 to 30 milligrams of psilocybin analyte. The product coming into the service centers is testing typically 3 to 4 times higher than what we've been able to test just, getting off the streets or whatever like that. So it's much, much more potent. So it's really hard to, people ask, well, is that a gram? Is it an eighth? What is it? And it's really hard to do that. But the potent medicine has been fantastic for the service centers for sure. For me personally too, like the service centers are doing their role, the manufacturing's doing their role, and then there's the whole educational piece of this too, right? And it's not only facilitator education, but it's general public education. People are talking about psychedelics, specifically psilocybin, even more specifically microdosing. I feel like everywhere that's like a household term right now. But true microdosing protocols aren't well known, right? They're actually the least tested scientifically. Now, in my opinion, clearly they're beneficial, but we got to wait for the data on that, right? We need the Western data in order to continue to prove it in this legal model. I also just want to make this really, really clear that, it's all about accessibility to this medicine, right? So I'm not saying that the legal, safe, supportive way is the only way. I highly support the underground industry as well. I think it's just about providing more access for anybody and everybody. The service centers are attracting folks that want it to be highly regulated and legal. And that's great. It's a whole facet of people that are, breaking this taboo, this stigma in society, and really starting to trust the research. 28 years out of Johns Hopkins, NYU, Harvard School of Divinity, Yale, Stanford. Let's go down the line on this now. All right, this isn't new. So it's been really cool to see strokes of all folks coming together and coming together around the medicine.
So we decide what the dosage is. So the facilitator and the client decide what the dosage is. Is there such a thing, like Terence McKenna used to say, a heroic dose? I mean, is there a limit to what's allowed?
Sure. Good question. The limit in Oregon is 50 milligrams of psilocybin analyte. It's a massive dose, man, to be honest. So some service centers won't go that high. We had no problem going that high. It just had to be justified almost always by medications, right? So antidepressants, SSRIs, SNRIs, they are very they prohibit the medicine, right? Like to break down in the system. So and the duration in the medicine is much shorter. So you have those higher doses, especially for folks that are taking a lot of antidepressants. Antidepressants are okay, except lithium. Lithium's a no-no, but that's really the only no-no when it comes to psilocybin. The rest can be mixed in there as far as like the antidepressants. It just takes a much higher dose to break through. Also, you agree on your initial dose, but then there's also a booster dose available too. So say, an hour check in and you're just not where you think you should be or where you want to be, then there's a booster dose available in the room as well to make sure you get to that place.
Now, how is the dose done? Because I have never really liked the taste
Mhm.
of just chewing. The dried mushrooms has always been distasteful for me. I would grind it up and put it in cranberry
Yeah.
juice or something like
So
that. How do you all administer it?
Another great question. So a lot of this, it's up to the client. Most people coming in have never experienced psilocybin, right? So they actually very much just want to eat it right out of the bottle, and they're also pleasantly surprised, like, hey, this actually isn't that bad. You know what I mean? There's this story in the head that it's going to be awful, right? And it's a bit cardboardy, not much taste, you know? But for people that don't want to do that too, it can be encapsulated. It can also be kind of mixed with lemon tech or kind of like this little porridge, little breakfast porridge people will make as well. So there's lots of ways around it. And as the rules and regs keep evolving, there will be many more edible forms, tincture forms, et cetera.
So we take the porridge or whatever we've decided to do, and typically, how long does it take for the effect to take hold?
Yeah, great question again. I mean, honestly, 15 to 20 minutes typically just smack you in the face. And it's really interesting. Most people put the eye mask on and go internal and go to work, you know. Can be very, very quiet, you know. Others not, right? It's like others will be yelling and screaming and whatever. It's all permissible though. It's whatever you need to have these energetic purges and releases, right? So typically through the prep session, you're going to kind of know how this is going to play out. And then obviously when the medicine is there and it's ingested and things are happening and portals are being opened, it's highly unpredictable.
And so, what's the room or the setting like?
Again, so every service center is different. The ones that I were in, there were two different settings. One was much more of kind of like cool lights, kind of a cosmic, spacey theme throughout the whole thing. And the other one that I was at was much more clinically based. And I don't mean fluorescent lights, white walls. I just mean they were just following much more of the Hopkins approach. And it was incredibly comfortable, like sofas and just beautiful fabrics and decor that were activating, not psychedelic, and textures. Everything was just thought of going into these centers where people are in highly sensitive, highly vulnerable states.
Now, one of the things I've learned about ketamine therapy is they it seems like they always incorporate music
Oh,
into it.
music
And
moves the medicine, man. So huge part of it.
okay, and so you
So,
guys give the people a choice of music, or you do
so
suggestions?
again, yeah, it's always they have the choice, but this is also worked out in those prep sessions too, right? And a big piece of these preps and the sessions themselves are letting go of control, right? Many of us really try to control our worlds, and if you get the opportunity to step back from that and evaluate how is this serving me, things can change. And that alone in this process, people letting go, truly releasing control for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours is crazy beneficial for them in a lot of ways, right? And so that's just another big piece of it as well.
So is that the about the average time people are in there, like 5 to 8 hours in the room, or what? What?
For the administration session, yeah. Then obviously on the front end, the prep sessions, and on the back end, the integration sessions. And this is in Oregon. Colorado comes on is well, it's good in Colorado. Their treatment centers, that's what they're called over there, are coming online this summer. And it's incredibly exciting. Like coming online, Colorado is the second state to do it, behind Oregon. Oregon will always be the first. It looks right now like Colorado's making rules and regs and setting up better than Oregon, which is expected, right? Like they've seen a blueprint and they can make it better. And it's really exciting to be getting into Colorado. And then for us too, every other state that comes online. And this is more on on our school that we're launching this summer. That's been the last 18 months, the Academy of Intrinsic Studies, which certifies facilitators in both Colorado and Oregon, state approved curriculums, and just trying to educate folks the best to be able to be in these incredibly sacred spaces with folks who are just going through it.
Was it challenging to get approved curriculum and to start this thing?
Yeah, sure. It takes a lot of time. Each state has different curriculum requirements, right? So we've been doing anywhere from 160 to 200 hours of approved curriculum per state. And yeah, it's no easy task. It takes a long time to do it right. And then just to differentiate yourself. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of schools people can choose from, right? I went to a great school. I went to the Changa Institute. I was the first class they ever got through. And it was exciting and it was great. And I want to make it clear, I didn't co-found this school because I was upset with with my previous schooling, right? They're great. I have nothing bad to say. They're a good partner, good friends, right? There just needs to be more options for folks out there, in my opinion, in our opinion. And we also believe that the more that people sit with the psilocybin throughout the training program, that they're going to get much more clear message of if this is for them or not, right? Like a lot of people think, wow, this is a really cool industry. I want to be a part of it. And the only way in is to be a facilitator. And I just want to say that's not it at all. To be a facilitator means you're just allowed in the room during that administration session. So much of this work on the preparation and especially the integration side, you don't need that facilitator license. Anyone can do that. And that's a huge industry in itself, especially the integration side of it. So it's been really cool to be able to talk and make speeches and just let people know, yeah, there's a lot of ways in this industry, and it's not just facilitation, it's manufacturing, it's education, right? There's all sorts of things in here.
So the facilitator that's there for the experience is not the one that's doing the integration sessions.
It is. No, they are too.
Oh, it
So
is.
basically,
Okay.
I mean, when people are going through an organ, they're paying a price, and basically it's a package, right? And this is different per service center. So I'm just speaking for the ones that I was at, but you know, there was a price, and that it would include both preparation sessions, the administration session, and then 2 to 4 hours of the integration session. And then what I'm saying is a lot of times people need more integration, right? And to be able to find folks they don't have to be facilitators, they can be therapists, they can be life coaches, right? They can be anybody that's familiar with the psychedelic space, right? It should be at least, and how to help people that have been going through this like implement changes into their lives, because it's always up. We can be shown a bunch of different paths, but it's up to us whether we choose them or not.
So what is the price of the centers you've been involved with to go through this?
It's another great question. So anywhere when this market opened up, it was crazy. I think the range was $5,000 to $15,000, depending on this stuff. We were never there. We were always right at the $2,900 level. And that, like I said, was the preparations, the administration, the integration sessions, which is about 20 hours of work for a facilitator as well through all of that. And when you start breaking that down, there aren't huge margins in this, And I mean, as you know too, even around here, like folks that are going to go to the underground for this experience too, for a guided experience, the same thing, they're still paying $3,000 to $5,000, So it's the same thing kind of in both markets. There's just a lot more hoops to jump through and a lot more costs in the legal spaces.
It's wild to hear about all this. Obviously back when I was having experiences along these lines, I mean, it was all no facilitators, or maybe you had a good friend you could, go through integration with. And, certainly you didn't know kind of one, the product from one to another, how the dosage was going to hit you and everything like that. Tell me these days, what consumes most of where's most of your focus?
Yeah, so I had a great time for these last 2 years in the service centers, but at the same time in building the school with this amazing team. And for me, it's always about industry growth and expansion. Everything I've ever done, kombucha industry, like all of it, right? Hemp, alpacas, all this stuff. And this is a way to grow this industry with education. Like I was saying, not just training the healers and the facilitators, but creating this online platform that is able to do all sorts of different certifications, not just psilocybin. I think next year our plan is to have, all 50 states approved for ketamine certifications. And we're just going to keep going from there because the Academy of Intrinsic Studies, right? Like this is the whole purpose of the name of it too. It can be psychedelics are a piece of it, but it's not the whole piece of the mosaic, right? Like it's a very holistic approach with lots of different views and but a pretty constant message of just like education's where it's at for this solid education, trusted education, you know, with the science backing it as well as taking into account and honoring the woo-woo.
Now tell me, it doesn't sound like you're doing much facilitating these days.
I mean, I still am. I still am facilitating. I haven't facilitated in probably about a month or two. And I love facilitating. Don't get me
I was going
wrong.
to say, do you miss it?
Sure, I do, and but that's something I can always do for folks, right? Like I do enjoy it. I think that I'm able to really help people help themselves is what it comes down to. And being a facilitator, there's such a fine line between letting people go through the process with them and the medicine, right? And not getting in the way of that, but also recognizing, oh, this is a rabbit hole that isn't serving well. We've been spinning down it for a while. Let's recenter, let's reset, let's refocus, and let the medicine go from there. So um, it's a very difficult space, for a lot of people to be in. I don't think a lot of people understand the energetic purging that's happening in there. And if you don't have and you haven't been trained yourself in just obviously self-care, but a lot of just energetic care as well, of purging and dumping yourself. It is an industry that I worry about that a lot of people could burn out very fast, depending on just self-care practices.
Uh, oh, I had a question right there and it escaped me. Let me just be center for a moment. Tell me about the clientele. I mean, you mentioned that you've had a lot of veterans. Um, who else is coming to the centers?
Everybody and anyone you could imagine. Honestly, people from their early 20s to a guy that I had that was 89 having his first psychedelic experience, been married over 60 years, and went in there to work on himself and his marriage. And it was one of the most beautiful experiences that I've ever gotten to witness in my life. So, this is the other thing, right? Like, and people in their consultations and stuff like that will say, my best friend hasn't blown up next to me, and I haven't seen people die, and I haven't been in traumas similar to the military or first responders, right? But this is for everybody. Everybody has their own stuff to work through, and it's not comparable. And so this is for anyone as long as they're fit, psychologically and physically, and emotionally to be able to go through the process. Because as much as I'd love to say it's unicorns and rainbows, like that's not the case. Like we're diving in and diving into ourselves. Look at the mirror, right? Like that is brutal work at times.
So brings us to a question: who is this not for?
So anyone that's taking lithium, right, or anyone that's been diagnosed with any type of bipolar or personality disorder, just because there's a higher chance of psychosis with any psychedelics when it comes to that, and service centers and facilitators and quite honestly, just medical staff in general aren't equipped to handle that yet. Now, can that change down the road? I sure hope so, right? Like I hope that the psychedelics can help with more intense mental illnesses and stuff, but I guess time will tell on that.
And Is it covered by insurance in Oregon?
Great question. No, not yet. Um, there is really great talks about OHP being able to pick it up soon, which is just game changing. That is like free health insurance here, right?
Okay.
So that would start to serve an incredible population, that's been unserved for this because as of now, it's not a pocket expense, you know.
And is it going to be that same way in Colorado?
It has to be until that federal pendulum fully shifts, right? We're still a Schedule One. We're
Right.
we're talking about this like this right now, but in all reality and legality, it is still a Schedule One, which is
So we've
what it is.
got we've got Oregon that's already online. We've got Colorado that isn't online yet, but happening. It is online.
Colorado is legal.
Okay.
They're in their second year now of it, and no, they have schools are approved, manufacturing facilities are getting approved, and service centers are getting built and will open this summer. So they're online.
Okay.
Just you just can't get to a service center yet. It's that weird
And
first year.
now, are there other places or pockets, not states, but like did Oakland declassify
Yeah,
or
so there's decriminalization stuff going on everywhere, but I'm talking more on like state legislator of actually, of state legalization, right? And there's a lot of states that are doing this. California was really close. In fact, it passed by quite a bit, and then the governor vetoed it. But a lot of this just comes to the writing of the bills. This isn't new, right? Like things go in, they get revised, they get approved. Massachusetts is close, Nevada's close, Washington's close. There's going to be, my guess in the next 5 years is you'll see another 5 to 10 states come online. And then I think it really starts compounding after that because there's so much data at that point too.
so you've given us some examples of what people have been able to clear up. Give us some other things. Obviously, the PTSD, but what are some of the other uh, stories or
Yeah.
that you can share?
I mean, just a lot of folks, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of wanting to reconnect, or rediscover inner child work. Um, just existential crisis, right? Like a really cool group of a bunch of environmental lawyers came in as a company. They were burnt out because they felt like all the work they're doing is for nothing, right? And then for them to be able to come up and do these types of retreats was just epic, for them.
So
There's a
was
lot.
that a group facilitation?
There was, yep,
Wow,
which is really cool.
powerful.
Other group facilitations too. I mean, there's just been, there's a lot of these companies in Silicon Valley. It's like they're creating it as part of their own internal mental health plans. So they're sending folks up here as team department retreats to go through these types of things together as well. So it's been pretty cool to see that too.
You have couples coming in and doing it at the same time?
Yes, couples therapy is like one of the cool, and couples can be sure it can be romantic or not. We've had plenty of familial generations coming through as twos, lots of romantic couples. Um, it's and like doing this work individually with a facilitator and a guide is unlike any experience I had ever had, right? Doing it with a partner of any type or a family member. I mean, it's freaking unbelievable. And then these group sessions, right? Like the group container is just magic in the bottle, lightning in the bottle, whatever it is, right? Just be able to see folks. A lot of them know each other. Some come into it knowing no one knows anybody at all, and they leave with this bond of self-love and knowledge and truth. And I don't know if there's anything stronger to bond people than that.
Love that. What about addictions like alcoholism or other addictions?
Yeah, man. So, psilocybin's great for all of these addictions. AA, we've had a lot of people that have been in recovery, and their sponsors, AA seems to very much support this. AA was founded on psychedelics, right? That's no secret either. LSD was a big part of it at the time. So, and of all of the people in recovery that have gone through, none of them have been driven back to alcohol. Quite the opposite. I don't. I mean, you can tell me this. Have you ever met anyone that's really gone through like a therapeutic psychedelic experience and coming out of it being like, I need to drink more. I need to do more drugs. Like I don't know. I've never experienced that. So
This is amazing. Um, so what's the future hold for all of this? Just more expansion across the states and easier
education.
access?
education education on it, right? Because everyone's talking about it again. It's mainstream education of the availability of this, the legal procedures of it, right? State to state complications with it, right? And obviously, I believe that once this federal pendulum is swinging fast, my guess is we're within 2, 3 years of seeing psilocybin get rescheduled, if not descheduled. It will happen before cannabis ever does. And there's already huge movements for this. The VA's already has federal funding from Congress to put active military into their psilocybin trial, right? Like this is phenomenal. That's federal funding. So that's a huge beginning of that pendulum shift. And it was really interesting too. I know a lot of people in this political scene, but when this was going on, the ones of us in this industry, we were just like, you know what, like this won't affect our industry negatively either way this goes, right? Everybody is supportive of this. So as long as that continues, I think that there's going to be big federal and state movements on this.
That's awesome. I'm a big proponent of all of this. I just love I mean, the fact that you and I get to have this conversation, and that back in 2009, we met and everything, and this is the good work that you're doing. It's always impressed me what you've been involved in, and the heart and soul that you put into everything. I love that it is now in psilocybin therapy, and I know that you've already helped a tremendous number of people, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. So I applaud your passion and your commitment to all of this. And I want to just thank you for being on the It's All Good show, and really for showing up, not just for showing up on the show, but for showing up, in the world the way that you do.
Well, it's honestly like our friendship has meant so much to me over the years. And I love that we've kept pretty close throughout it all, and life has certainly thrown us both a bunch of curveballs along the way. And we just keep managing to work through them and weave through it together in a lot of ways. And thank you for being you. Thank you for your perspective and view on the world, and the huge amount of love that you just have always had. And yeah, I just think that what you're doing is incredible too. So anytime we can collaborate on anything, I'm all in.
I may ask you to facilitate
I was
for
just going to
me
offer that.
sometime.
I was just going to offer that. I would love to do that. I would love to.
All right, Dave, thank you so much for being on the show. We will include links and things wherever we post this so people can get more information and track you down along the way. And best to you and your family, and just deep love and appreciation always.
Love you, brother.